You're still being fair to people who stopped being fair to you a long time ago. Not because you don't see it. You see it. You see every single time the exchange is uneven. Every time you give more than you get. Every time you hold back something you could have used because it didn't feel right, and the other person had zero hesitation doing exactly that to you. You see it, and you absorb it, and then you do it again. That's not virtue. That's a pattern. And patterns have reasons. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his entire life watching powerful people operate. Not from a distance, from inside the room. He was a diplomat, a political advisor, a man who sat across from rulers and watched how they actually moved versus how they claimed to move. And what he kept seeing, over and over, was a gap. A gap between the rules people announced and the rules they actually used. The ones who succeeded weren't the most honest. They weren't the most fair. They were the ones who understood the real game while everyone else was busy playing the advertised one. That's not a dark observation. That's just what he saw. And the question isn't whether you agree with him. The question is, does any of that sound familiar? Here's where it starts. Not with bad people, with a bad assumption. Somewhere early, and it doesn't matter where exactly, you absorbed the idea that fairness is a system, that it operates like gravity, automatic, consistent, that if you put fairness in, fairness comes back out. So you built your behavior around that. You stayed honest in situations where lying was easier. You gave people the benefit of the doubt past the point where doubt should have been gone. You didn't take what you could have taken because it didn't feel right. And for a while, maybe, it seemed to work. Or at least, it didn't obviously fail. But then you started noticing the gap between what you gave and what came back, between how carefully you treated certain people and how casually they treated you. You noticed. You just called it something else. A bad week, a misunderstanding. Circumstances. That's not generosity. That's avoidance. Machiavelli wrote about two animals, the lion and the fox. The lion has power, raw, visible, undeniable. Nobody questions the lion, but the lion can't see traps. It walks straight into them because it's used to things moving out of its way. The fox doesn't have that kind of strength, but the fox sees the trap before it steps in it. It reads the terrain. It adapts. His point wasn't that you should be vicious. His point was that if you move through the world as only one of these, only strength or only shrewdness, you are already at a disadvantage. Because the people around you are, consciously or not, using both. And you've been using neither. You've been using fairness, which isn't even on the list. Let's slow down here, because this is where it gets specific. Think about a situation, and you already have one in mind. You don't need to search for it. Where you were fair, and it cost you. Where you held back, or gave more, or stayed quiet, and the other person walked away better off than they deserved to be. Now think about whether they even registered it, not whether they thanked you. Whether they registered it, whether the fairness you extended changed anything in how they moved the next time. It didn't, did it? Because here's what fairness does when it's one-sided. It teaches, not lessons you intend to teach. It teaches the other person exactly how much they can take, exactly how much slack you'll give, exactly where your limit is, and that your limit is further than they thought. You didn't help them. You calibrated them. That's not kindness. That's access. And this is the part nobody wants to say directly, so I will. A lot of what people call fairness isn't really about ethics. It's about comfort. Being fair is safer. It avoids conflict. It avoids the guilt of having pushed too hard or taken too much. It avoids being the person who played it selfishly and all the internal noise that comes with that identity. So you choose fair, not because it's always the right call, because it's the easier internal experience. Machiavelli would have seen that instantly. He wrote about men who use virtue as a shield, not because they're virtuous, but because virtue is comfortable. Because it keeps them from having to make harder, more exposed decisions. He wasn't calling those people good. He was calling them manageable. Think about what that means. To be manageable. Here's what the asymmetry actually looks like in real time. And pay attention here, because this is the mechanism most people miss. You're fair to someone. They benefit. You expect, not consciously, but somewhere underneath, that this registers. That it creates some kind of debt, some reciprocity, some shift in how they see you. It doesn't. So you're fair again. Still, nothing changes. You absorb the outcome. You tell yourself it's fine. But now, something subtle has happened. They've learned that your fairness is unconditional, that it doesn't require anything from them, that they don't have to match it or even acknowledge it for it to keep coming. You've made your fairness free, and free things don't get valued. That's not a character flaw in them. That's just how value works. One more time. You gave them something with no cost attached, and they treated it accordingly. That's not betrayal. That's a dynamic you built, transaction by transaction, without realizing what you were building. Machiavelli said something that most people flinch at when they first read it. He said, "A man who wants to be good in all things will come to ruin among so many who are not good." Not evil, not malicious, just not operating by the same code you are. And there's a version of you that already knows exactly who in your life this applies to. That has watched someone operate without your rules, without your constraints, without the weight of fairness you carry around, and benefit from it. Repeatedly. While you watched and said nothing, because what would you even say? You already know this. You've known for longer than you'd admit. So what's the actual shift? Because this isn't about becoming cold. This isn't permission to start treating people badly or operating without principles. That's a lazy reading, and it misses everything. The shift is in perception. It's the difference between being fair because you believe it will be returned and being fair when you choose to be, with full awareness that it may not be. One is a transaction waiting to fail. The other is a conscious decision that doesn't require anything back. That sounds like a small distinction. It isn't. Because when you remove the expectation, you also remove the repeated quiet shock of being let down. You stop absorbing that cost. You start seeing situations for what they are, not what they should be. You stop being surprised. And when you stop being surprised, you start being accurate. Accuracy is what Machiavelli was actually selling, not manipulation, not ruthlessness. The ability to see the terrain as it is, to know which situation calls for the lion and which calls for the fox, to stop bringing fairness to a conversation where the other side isn't bringing it. Not because fairness is wrong, because misapplying it is expensive, and you've been paying that cost for a while now. The world isn't punishing you for being fair. It's doing something quieter and more corrosive than that. It's just continuing. Indifferently. While you wait for a reciprocity that was never guaranteed, you can keep waiting. Or you can look at the situations in your life, the specific ones, the ones you already thought of earlier in this video, and ask a different question. Not, why aren't they being fair to me? But, when did I decide that my fairness was something everyone deserved, regardless of what they were doing with it? Because that decision, you made it, quietly, somewhere along the way, and you can make a different one. The question is whether you will, or whether being fair has just become easier than being honest about what's actually happening. Think about it.